All right. This isn't necessarily an episode of the podcast, but I feel as though I have to elaborate on my stance, just because I know that it's controversial to hold the beliefs that I believe in, but I wanted to explain. I don't have to, but I want to, because I feel like speaking on this might open another person's eyes to kind of be more open-minded on the subject, and B, we need to focus on the issue at hand here. So if you're following me from TikTok, I posted a TikTok about Black Lives Matter and how, the whole George Floyd incident, and how he passed away with a knee on his neck, and he shouldn't have passed away, and how there are white people out there in the same span of 72 hours using their privilege, their white privilege, as a weapon against black people, calling the cops, pretending that they're threatened, that their lives are threatened, and this and that. And I wanted to explain, because I know there are a lot of people out there who feel as though if you're one of those people who believes in the Black Lives Matter movement and the overall movement behind Black Lives Matter, then you're automatically against police officers. And I think when we put ourselves and other people into boxes, it just shows the lack of intelligence and rationality that we have as a fucking society. And I'm not trying to insult anybody, but I don't feel as though the two are mutually exclusive. I believe if you've been watching this podcast and you've seen a bunch of the episodes that have come out, maybe at this point a bunch of episodes haven't come out. You might have only seen 2. But as you continue to watch this podcast and listen, you'll understand that I'm a firm believer in accountability as human beings. I believe that is so important. It's so important for us to hold ourselves accountable and hold our peers and people that we believe aren't doing the best that they can be doing, that they should be doing, accountable for their actions. And I believe that that's what we should be doing. And with that, if I see a police officer not doing the right thing, I don't think that just because I support police officers, just because I know many police officers, many great police officers in my life, that means I should turn a blind eye to the ones who are doing bad things. You can recognize the good in people and the good in a certain group of people, but still also call out the bad eggs and the ones that aren't doing the right thing. And I don't think it's responsible as a society to pretend as though certain things don't happen, to make excuses for why they do. It's not responsible. It's not morally responsible to pretend as though these things don't happen. Because the minute a cop gets killed by somebody, by a black person, an angry black person, there are riots and protests and people speaking out. Those same people speak out with that situation, but they won't speak out when a black person is killed, and I don't understand why. Because I'm pretty consistent in my views. If a police officer were killed by any race, it doesn't matter. If a police officer were killed because of an angry person who felt that they were oppressed, I don't think that's right. And I will literally speak out against that the same way that I would speak out against a police officer not taking his knee off of somebody's neck who's clearly unable to breathe. I won't stop speaking out about a police officer who opens fire on a person that literally is doing the right thing, i.e. Philando Castile, who literally was following the law to the T. He had a gun that was registered to him, legal, on his person, And when he got stopped by the police officer was not even like questioning him. He knew that by law, he had to do the right thing and let people know, hey, I have a gun. For your safety and my own, I'm letting you know I have a gun on my person. It's legal. I'm registered to it. I've done the right thing. He did all the right things. When the cop asked for his ID, he didn't resist. He fucking went into his pocket to get his ID as asked, and he was lit up like a fucking Christmas tree. So if you want to say, oh, they're resisting, that's why. First of all, if you're resisting arrest, that doesn't mean you should die at the hands of a police officer. The only time a human being should die at the hands of a police officer is if they are attempting to kill a police officer or attacking a police officer. That's number one. Number two is that's an excuse that we shouldn't be fucking using. And to me, it's an excuse that deflects from the problem at hand. Because when all lives matter, but you don't believe that Black lives matter, then all lives don't fucking matter. Because in order for all lives to matter, Black lives need to matter. And if you want to use all lives matter as a deflection as to why Black lives matter is, a bad thing or whatever, then take all the analogies that have been thrown at people. I mean, people still aren't going to understand because there are so many people who just want to be right out here in these streets. But if you have two children, one is perfectly healthy and the other one comes down with COVID-19 or cancer, God forbid, you're going to focus on the one that's sick. When you have three brothers, one gets stricken with cancer, the mother's obviously going to focus, the family's going to focus on the kid who's fighting cancer. Doesn't mean that the other two brothers don't matter. Of course they matter, but right now that kid is the one that needs the most attention because that kid is the one that's suffering right now. I don't understand how this needs to be broken down to a bunch of adults, but to me, all lives matter is just simply a deflection from the issues because people don't want to face the issues because this is politicized, so politicized. But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be fucking politicized. You shouldn't be looked at, if you say that Black Lives Matter, you shouldn't be looked at as an extremist. Yes, there are bad eggs in the Black Lives Matter movement, just as the same way that there are bad eggs in the police forces. There are people who utilize this protest to do more crimes and commit more heinous crimes. And they use this movement and protests as a means to benefit themselves. I'm not behind that. And I can say that without saying that I'm not that I'm against Black Lives Matter. And I can say that I'm for police officers without backing the bad egg police officers who use the blue wall, which very much so exists, because I can give you multiple fucking examples of how it exists, but we'd be here for hours. I can recognize the flaws. I'm going to school for nursing. There's a whole association within nursing that is built on holding nurses accountable. Whether they fuck up on accident because of negligence or they're purposely utilizing their position to gain something or to cause harm to somebody else, there's a whole coalition of nurses, a board of nurses, you can look it up, that are their sole purpose is to hold their counterparts accountable for their actions. I don't understand why police don't have the same thing. Why it's such a fucking travesty to say that that needs to be a thing. That a blue wall needs to not exist. It needs to be knocked down. If a police officer is committing a crime, his or her peers, shouldn't be standing behind that person pretending as if it doesn't exist. If a police officer kills somebody and they shouldn't have killed somebody and they used force, even if they felt threatened, but they really weren't, and the evidence shows that they really weren't, they should be held accountable. Nurses don't just lose their jobs. They go to jail depending on what they do that harms another person. why this isn't a thing in the police force, in every profession, but namely the police force, because unfortunately it just doesn't exist in the police force. It doesn't. Where do you want to start? Where do you want to begin? You want to start with, one time I was wasted off my ass in the passenger seat of my friend's car, who was also just as wasted as I was, and she was driving, and we were driving home from the bar, and we got stopped by a police officer, but because she handed this police officer a badge that either her father or her grandfather had or somebody close to her had, it was their badge. This police officer, whose job is to see when people are fucked up, could clearly see that we were both fucked up in our early 20s, and he let us go. And he let us drive home, knowing we were fucked up simply because we had a piece of metal that showed that we knew a cop. Tell me the blue wall doesn't exist. Tell me it doesn't exist. Tell me when people beg for PBA cards because that card represents you knowing a cop so that you can literally speed and get out of any fucking ticket. Tell me it doesn't exist. Tell me it doesn't exist when there are fucking autistic kids who are dying at the hands of their police officer fathers who are abusing them. When that father was had the cops called on him numerous times, but his friends were the ones who showed up to the scene and many times pretended like nothing was happening. And now there's a dead child out of the whole situation because people turn a blind eye to it. And I don't believe that calling that out means that I hate police officers. As a matter of fact, I think it's the opposite. When you love somebody and you know the potential that somebody has, you want them to do better. If you have a child and your child is bullying another child, but you know that your child has the potential to be a compassionate, good human being and has all of this potential, but the teacher comes to you and says, hey, listen, Cindy's being a bully to this other kid, and, you need to hold Cindy accountable and teach Cindy. It's your job as a loving parent, as a good parent, to call your child out and let your child know that that's not the behavior that they should be taking part in. So if you have a police officer in your family, or you know a police officer very close to you, a good one, have the conversation with them. And that as a good police officer, as a stand-up police officer, that person, whoever they are in your life, should be holding their peers accountable as well. And the minute they fucking see something out of line, they should report it and fight for the rights of everybody else. Because at the end of the day, the police officer's job is to serve and protect the community. But when there are groups of people who do not feel safe, something needs to fucking change. That's all. Why is it so bad to say that? Why? Why are you automatically labeled an extremist when you say that? If a bunch of doctors got together and were performing surgery, and almost every single time they performed surgery on a certain group of people, miraculously, that group of people either died on the table or had severe complications, we would be like, wow, this is kind of weird. What the fuck is going on? Would the people with doctors in their family be like, I have a doctor in my family, so no, all doctors are perfect. How dare you fucking... No. Because we would know that it could potentially have been our family member on that table that died or had severe complications. It could easily be. And while, right now there are riots going on and people are taking this opportunity to loot and fucking be barbarians in the streets, I don't agree with that. I'll never agree with that on any end of the spectrum. But at the same time, I can understand the anger because I'm Italian. And I know if a bunch of Italians were seemingly being targeted, and I'll say seemingly because there are so many people out there who want to throw stupid statistics. Oh, black on black crime. Fuck you with the black on black crime. The black on black crime happens because of the proximity effect. A black person is not going, black people have there are black communities, just like there are white communities. The town I live in is predominantly white. So that automatically, rationally means that when a heroin addict in my town, a white heroin addict, is looking for spare change to get themselves a fix, they're not going to, in their head, go, wait. I don't want to break into a white person's car. Let me go 2 towns over to the predominantly black neighborhood. So the same truth is held with black people. So yes, more white on white crimes are committed in white predominantly white neighborhoods, simply the same way that black on black crimes are committed in predominantly black neighborhoods. This should be common sense. It's the proximity effect. I'd like to shake the hand of a criminal who's actually calculating. Maybe they should start. I don't know. But either way, I think there are bad eggs in every single group of people. And we can recognize that. And I don't agree with the riots. But I know that if Italians were seemingly being targeted, I know a lot of my family members, including my father, my very Italian father, who's very proud to be Italian, would be fucking angry. Homeboy almost started a fist fight in the food store because people were telling him to put his mask on. So we can't even wear masks out here in public. These same people that are protesting the fact that they need to wear masks in public are the same ones that are saying like, all lives matter and Black Lives Matter is just, a terrorist movement and this and that. Those are the same ass people. Y'all are getting crazy, feeling like your rights are stripped from you and you're oppressed because you have to wear a mask and stay in your house and not hug people for right now because there's a global pandemic. But you can't recognize the oppression in the black community. It's so ass backwards and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You can't recognize your own privilege. You can't recognize the fact that when you get stopped by a police officer, you don't have to worry about keeping both hands on the wheel and not making eye contact for fear that you're going to get lit up like a fucking Christmas tree on December 25th. I have a black uncle. He's since passed away, and he was very right-wing. By no stretch of the imagination was this man a liberal man, but he knew first and foremost that when he got stopped for speeding, he was not to move, he was not to look, and he was to do as he was told. Why? Why is that a thing? I don't have to worry about that as a white female, 5-foot female, non-threatening female. I don't have to worry about that when I get stopped. But yeah, no, white privilege just doesn't exist. To me, it's just, if you're turning a blind eye to it, you're part of the problem. You are the problem, period. And if you're going to look at others as if when we say Black Lives Matter, that means we're against white people, you're proving the whole point. You're proving the whole point that this is a very divided debate, and it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be police against black people. It doesn't need to be. And when we act like children and point fingers, well, he's doing it first. Look at what they're doing. Shut the fuck up and hold yourself accountable. Just be accountable. It's not about left, right, center. It's not about that. It's about the issue at hand. That a video of a man, and mind you, this isn't the first video. Remember Eric Garner, who also told police officers and EMTs he couldn't breathe. He was selling Lucy cigarettes on the side of the fucking road. Do we remember this? And even though he was a big man resisting arrest, and he was resisting, does that mean he should have had the life taken from his body? It doesn't. Because if your cousin or your brother were fucking retarded and resisting arrest, because yes, it's retarded to resist arrest, but if they were, would you then think if they died in the hands of a police officer, that was justified. You wouldn't. I can answer the fucking question for you. You wouldn't. You wouldn't think that. So it just makes no sense. It makes no sense. There are, again, if we're going to recognize one end of the spectrum, we have to be fair and balanced and recognize the other. There are people out there who are angry and purposely attacking police officers for no reason. Police officers who are just out there doing their job and not doing anything wrong. That is not right. That's not what we should be doing. And those people are the ones that make the Black Lives Matter movement look like a terrorist group. But they're not. They're not a terrorist group of people. The Black Lives Matter movement was started as a way to raise awareness. And unfortunately, the same way that there are police officers, many of them that abuse their fucking power and use the blue wall as a way to be above the law and help their families be above the law, is the same way that there are people in the Black Lives Matter movement who are using that movement as a way and an excuse to commit crimes. Looting a store has nothing to do with the Black Lives Matter movement. Period. But it would be very irresponsible of us as adults in a society that we want to be better. We want our society to be better. It would be very irresponsible for us to turn a blind eye to the things that go on. And that's on facts. And there's so much more I could say. There's so much more that can be said. There's so much more that needs to be done. You know, when you have people like Philando Castile and Eric Garner and George Floyd and, what was that? The guy that was running, he was just simply jogging, black man jogging recently. And he got killed. I think his name was Ahmaud. I'm pretty sure. When these things are happening, we can't there to me there's just no way to continue saying it doesn't exist. And it's sad. It really is sad that these things need to even be addressed, and that there are people out there even resisting this movement. All lives cannot matter until we recognize that Black lives need to. Until we can recognize that right now they don't, as much as they should. And if you're not Black and you're any other ethnicity or race, put yourself in that position for a minute. Put yourself in that position and let me know if you would appreciate the systemic biases that happen. Let me know if you'd be able to continue life without being fucking angry and a little bitter toward other people. You know, I don't know. It's sad. It's just a sad thing. And I've seen so much of it in my life, in real life, but also in the media. And, you know, so many, oh, well, that's because the media purposely does that. No, it's because it's really happening. It's really fucking happening. Oh, why does everything need to be made about race? Because in this particular situation, it is about race. It is about fucking race. And we can't deny that. If you want to be an ostrich and stick your head in the fucking sand, by all means. But that doesn't mean that when you finally take your head out of your ass, that the situation is not still going to be there. It needs to be recognized and addressed. We have to keep an open mind to the fact that this is a real life situation. But I did want to give some clarity because I'm not a police officer hater. And anybody thinking that just because I believe in the Black Lives Matter movement, and I truly wholeheartedly 100% believe that Black lives do matter, if you think that means I'm against police officers, you have a pretty convoluted way of thinking, and you need to broaden your horizons and learn to be a little bit more rational. Because it's not one or the other. The two aren't mutually exclusive of one another. Police officers shouldn't be getting killed in the line of duty the same way that Black people shouldn't be killed for resisting arrest. It seems as though it's pretty logical to me. And unfortunately, for George Floyd's family, and for Eric Garner's family, and Philando Castile's family, and all the other Black men and women who have died at the hands of police officers or at the hands of civilians that are watching the neighborhoods. For all of those people's families, unfortunately, it's still a very much so ongoing issue that needs to be addressed. So, right now this house is on fire, and right now we need to put the fire out. And the only way to put the fire out is to first recognize that it's on fire. That's it. I could give you so many stories of police officers that I know in my family and that I know personally who have made comments and said racist things and said certain things about Black people. I only arrest Black people, or what are these N-words doing here, committing crimes and this and that. Where's that come from? We should be treating police officers the same way we treat civilians who are going into jury duty. Before they enter into the academy, we should give them an extensive questionnaire to see if they have any biases against any races or groups of people. If they don't, they pass, they enter into the academy, they become a police officer. Then 3 years into duty, they should be given that same questionnaire. Because I understand fully that being on duty, an on-duty police officer, can definitely change your perspective on people. You know, when you're in a predominantly Black neighborhood, that means that you're going to be arresting predominantly Black people, if not only Black people. And by default, because at the end of the day, we're human beings, we may grow to have biases toward those groups of people. And you see one Black person and you may think that they're all the friggin' same because in your head, you work in a predominantly Black neighborhood and you see predominantly Black people committing crimes. So right away, that's where your psyche goes. That's just human psychology. You're conditioned to basically feel that way. So if after 3 years on duty, 4 years, 5 years on duty, every 5 years, I think 3, realistically, but even if every 5 years, we give these people, these men and women, this questionnaire again to see and really psychologically analyze them to see, do they have any biases? Has this affected them psychologically? 9 out of 10 times it's gonna. It's absolutely gonna affect the human being. At the end of the day, that's all we are, is human beings. And I understand police officers make mistakes. And I understand that they need to protect themselves. And I understand that under pressure, there's a lot of pressure. I get that. I fully understand that. But that's still no excuse for when you are in a situation and you have your knee on somebody's neck and that person says they can't breathe. It's no excuse as to why you should not take your knee off of their neck. And that's it. I hope I've made my point. I'm all about healthy debates and stuff like that. I don't really want to debate this, though, because to me it doesn't seem as though it's debatable. It should just be common sense. I love everybody. I love black people. I love white people. I love police officers. I thank the good ones for protecting, making me feel safe. But y'all need to do better. And you need to hold your counterparts accountable and make sure they're doing better. To the ones that are doing better already, hold your colleagues accountable. You're not above the law. Anyway, I love you all very, very much. And I hope I've given some insight onto this subject. Thanks for listening. Peace out, everybody.